On this day in history, November 17th. On November 17, 1183, Minamoto no Yoshinaka's ambitious invasion force encountered the Taira clan's fleet off the coast of Mizushima in a battle that would significantly impact the Genpei War. The Taira forces, leveraging their superior naval expertise and intimate knowledge of local waters, outmaneuvered Yoshinaka's predominantly land-based warriors in the narrow straits. The resulting decisive victory for the Taira clan dealt a crushing blow to Yoshinaka's campaign, though it would prove to be one of the Taira's last major successes in their ongoing struggle for power in Japan. King Charles VIII of France led his formidable army into Florence on November 17, 1494, marking a pivotal moment in his ambitious Italian campaign. The citizens of Florence, having expelled the powerful Medici family just days before, received the French monarch with a mix of apprehension and calculated diplomacy under the guidance of Girolamo Savonarola. The French occupation of Florence would prove transformative for both the city and Italian politics, though Charles's triumph would be short-lived as his Italian conquests began to unravel within months of his successful entry. The United States Congress convened its historic first session in the new capital of Washington, D.C. on November 17, 1800, marking a pivotal moment in American political history. The move from Philadelphia to the newly constructed Capitol building represented the fulfillment of the Residence Act of 1790, which had established the federal district. This inaugural session in Washington solidified the city's role as the permanent seat of the federal government, though the Capitol building itself was still largely under construction. On November 17, 1810, Sweden made the unusual diplomatic move of declaring war on its ally, the United Kingdom, initiating what would become known as the Anglo-Swedish War. The declaration was essentially a political maneuver by Sweden to appease Napoleon Bonaparte while maintaining secret friendly relations with Britain. Despite the official state of war, no actual combat took place between the two nations, making it one of history's most peculiar conflicts. American sailor Captain Nathaniel Palmer achieved a historic milestone on November 17, 1820, when he became the first American to sight the Antarctic continent from his small sloop Hero. His discovery came while seeking new sealing grounds in the Southern Ocean as part of a larger sealing fleet. His legacy would be immortalized when the Palmer Peninsula was later named in his honor, recognizing his contribution to Antarctic exploration. The Suez Canal was officially inaugurated on November 17, 1869, in a grand ceremony attended by European royalty and dignitaries, marking the completion of one of the 19th century's greatest engineering achievements. The canal, connecting the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea, was the culmination of 10 years of intensive labor under the direction of French diplomat Ferdinand de Lesseps. This revolutionary waterway would transform global maritime trade by providing a direct route between Europe and Asia, eliminating the need to circumnavigate Africa. On November 17, 1878, anarchist Giovanni Passanante launched the first assassination attempt against King Umberto I of Italy, armed with a dagger during a royal procession in Naples. Prime Minister Benedetto Cairoli heroically intercepted the attacker, suffering a leg wound while protecting the king, who escaped with only a minor arm injury. The failed assassination attempt would lead to increased security measures for the Italian monarchy and harsh punishment for Passanante. H.H. Holmes, considered one of America's first modern serial killers, was apprehended by authorities in Boston on November 17, 1894, marking the end of his years-long reign of terror. His capture came after a complex insurance fraud scheme led investigators to uncover his elaborate murder castle in Chicago, where he had killed numerous victims. Holmes's arrest would lead to the discovery of one of the most horrific murder sprees in American history, with estimates of his victims ranging from 20 to as many as 200. The Western Pennsylvania Hockey League commenced play at Pittsburgh's Schenley Park Casino on November 17, 1896, pioneering a new era in professional ice hockey. This league would become the first to openly trade and hire players, establishing a precedent for professional hockey operations. The WPHL's innovative approach to player management would later influence the development of professional hockey leagues throughout North America. The Russian Social Democratic Labor Party experienced a historic split on November 17, 1903, dividing into two distinct factions, the Bolsheviks and Mensheviks. Vladimir Lenin led the Bolshevik faction, which ironically meant majority, despite initially having fewer supporters, while Julius Martov headed the Mensheviks, or minority. This schism would prove crucial to Russian history, eventually leading to the Bolshevik Revolution and the establishment of the Soviet Union. 9 Czech students were brutally executed by Nazi forces on November 17, 1939, in response to anti-Nazi demonstrations following the death of Jan Opletal. The Nazi regime's crackdown included closing all Czech universities and sending over 1,200 students to concentration camps. This tragic event would later be commemorated as International Students' Day, particularly in the Czech Republic, where it remains a powerful symbol of resistance against oppression. On November 17, 1947, the Screen Actors Guild took a decisive step in the context of growing Cold War tensions by implementing an anti-communist loyalty oath for its members. The oath required actors to declare they were not members of the Communist Party and marked a significant moment in Hollywood's relationship with McCarthyism. This decision would have far-reaching consequences for many actors and entertainment industry professionals during the Red Scare era. American scientists John Bardeen and Walter Hauser Brattain made a groundbreaking observation of transistor principles on November 17, 1947, at Bell Labs. Their discovery would prove fundamental to the development of modern electronics and computing. This pivotal moment in scientific history would later earn them, along with William Shockley, the Nobel Prize in Physics. The UN Security Council Resolution 89 called for establishing a mixed armistice commission to supervise the armistice between Israel and its neighbors on November 17, 1950. The resolution aimed to reduce tensions and maintain peace in the region. It was part of ongoing UN efforts to address the complex Palestine question following the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The Haiti game became one of the most notorious incidents in television history when NBC cut away from the Raiders-Jets game to show the children's movie Haiti on November 17, 1968. The Raiders scored 2 touchdowns in the final minute to win 43-32, but East Coast viewers missed it entirely. This incident led networks to adopt the policy of showing games to completion before switching to other programming. The Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, SALT-I, began in Helsinki on November 17, 1969, between the US and USSR at a crucial point in the Cold War. The negotiations aimed to curb the arms race by limiting strategic ballistic missile systems. These talks would eventually lead to the signing of the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty in 1972. Lunokhod-1 became the first remotely operated robot to land on another celestial body on November 17, 1970. The Soviet spacecraft successfully traversed the lunar surface for nearly a year, traveling over 10 kilometers. It sent back more than 20,000 images and conducted numerous soil analyses. President Nixon made his famous "I am not a crook" declaration during a televised press conference on November 17, 1973, at Disney's Contemporary Resort. The statement came in response to mounting allegations about the Watergate scandal and questions about his taxes. This quote would become one of the most memorable phrases associated with Nixon's presidency. The peaceful student demonstration in Prague on November 17, 1989, marked the beginning of Czechoslovakia's Velvet Revolution. The brutal police response sparked nationwide protests against the communist regime. This uprising would successfully end 4 decades of communist rule by the end of December. The House of Representatives' passage of NAFTA on November 17, 1993, marked a crucial step in establishing free trade between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. The agreement aimed to eliminate trade barriers and create one of the world's largest free trade zones. This historic vote came after intense political debate about the impact on American workers. The Luxor massacre on November 17, 1997, became one of Egypt's deadliest terrorist attacks when militants opened fire on tourists at the Temple of Hatshepsut. The attackers, members of the Islamic group, targeted foreign tourists to damage Egypt's tourism industry. The incident led to increased security measures at Egyptian archaeological sites. On November 17, 2000, the landslide in Logpod Mangartom devastated the small Slovenian village after heavy rainfall. The disaster displaced nearly 1 million cubic meters of material, destroying homes and infrastructure. The event remains one of Slovenia's worst natural disasters in recent history. Arnold Schwarzenegger was sworn in as the 38th Governor of California on November 17, 2003, following the recall of Gray Davis. The former actor and bodybuilder won the special recall election with 48.6% of the vote. His election marked an unusual transition from Hollywood stardom to state leadership. The first documented COVID-19 case was identified in Wuhan on November 17, 2019, though this was only determined through later investigation. The patient had visited the Huanan seafood wholesale market, which would later be linked to many early cases. This case would mark the beginning of what would become a global pandemic.